Hey guys, what's going on? Miles here with an all-new tutorial. For today's video, we're going to change things up a bit. I was recently asked how I edit some of my photos. For you who do not know, I'm also a photographer on the side. I do like amateur photography here. Nothing professional. I'm not the best in the world, guys. I'll say that right off the bat. But I did get some questions on how I edit some of my photography. So if you like these videos, you want to see more, let me know down in the comments. But we're going to give it a shot today and see what we can do here. Now, for today's video, we're going to look at this car photo. I recently went to the International Auto Show down in Detroit. Pretty cool. If you've never been there, I highly suggest checking it out. Unfortunately, it's going to be over already for this year, so you're going to have to wait a full year before it comes back. But if you like that, you know, definitely check it out. Now, for today's video, we're going to do mostly a car video. I added a lot of cars on the side. I take a lot of photography of cars. So I'm going to just show you kind of how I edit. This is a quick one. I'm not going to be taking out like glare and stuff. I'm not going to be doing a ton of in-depth Photoshop work here. I'm going to be sticking primarily to Lightroom today. So let's jump in and check it out, guys. So right off the bat, as you can see, this is the photo we're going to work with today. It's of the 218 Subaru WRX STI. I was down at Kobo this year. So it's by far one of my favorite cars on the road. So I figured this would be a good one to try out. Here, let me turn my light up a bit. So right off the bat, the goal of this is for to have a decent photo for Instagram. If you want to see it when it's done, check out, I'll leave a link to my Instagram down below. But let's start off here. I like to start off by cropping it for Instagram. There's no reason to do a whole photo or, edit a whole photo only to find out it doesn't look good for Instagram. So in this case, I'm going to do something like this. I'm just using the crop tool up here. I'm going to try to just, I want the car kind of in the middle. I know that's not the best, but that's what I want for this. So that looks good. So we're going to crop it to that. I'm going to press the Enter key to crop, and let's get started. So first thing I like to do is I like to scroll down here over on the right-hand side, and I like to click both on the chromatic aberrations and enable profile correction. Now, I don't use that fancy of a camera. As you can see, I'm just using a kit lens for this shot. So there was some vignetting. I wanted to get rid of that. So this is what I do right off the bat. So now I have a good starting ground. This is where I like to start. So I'm going to come up and we'll go all the way up on the right here. Now, to start off, I can see that it's a little overexposed. Not bad, but if we click on this, obviously you can see the lights are overexposed. We got some of the whites blown out down here. Obviously, you got the windows, so we've got a little bit of overexposure to work on, and I don't think shadows are too bad. I don't see anything really. So what I'm going to do to start off is I'm going to bring this exposure down a little bit. Now, I typically will play around here to see what looks best in the photo. Sometimes I'll leave a little bit of overexposure if the photo looks better that way. And again, it's all feel, guys. When you come to photo editing or Lightroom or anything like that, it's really all about feel, what you like, because at the end of the day, you're doing it for yourself. If you're doing it for a client, that's a little bit different, but end of the day, it's for you and what's your style of photography. So for me, I like to just do it by feel. So I'm going to lower that exposure down a bit, and I'm going to bring the contrast up. Kind of brings out the blues a little bit. Now, I'm not going to go too in-depth with it. Obviously, I can, really blow it out. But I like the 25 range for contrast. I don't want too much, not too little. So that looks about right for something I would do. Now, I like to lower my highlights a lot in my photos. I'm just not a huge fan of highlights, so I usually will bring those down quite a bit. And right around the 60 mark is where I would like to be. I'll boost the shadows sometimes, I'll play with it a little bit. For this photo, I'm going to boost them just a bit. They don't need to be blown out or anything. We'll move the whites down a little bit too, since they're so prevalent in this photo. You got all the whites here. So I'm going to bring those whites down a bit, something like that. And we can play with these blacks a little bit too if we want to make it a little bit lighter. Since we change the exposure on it a little bit. I'll bring it up to about 15, something like that. Looks good. Now, since it's a car photo, you can play with the clarity. I'm not a huge fan of clarity, but when you have like an automotive or an architecture shot, it's not too bad to play with. I wouldn't typically do this for portraits. So we'll go to about 12 on that. That looks about, if we zoom in here, you can see right here all these little dots, blue dots. It's because I have my histogram turned on. So you can see that it's kind of dark. That's why it's throwing it, but I'm okay with that. Clarity looks about where I would have it typically. I wish this wheel was more in focus. That was my fault when I shot this, but that's all right. Let's see what else we can do here. Now I'm going to turn the vibrance up just a hair. I don't like, too much. You can really start to mess with the color of the car. So you don't want to do too much when it comes to car photography. A little bit goes a long way. I'm going to leave the saturation alone too. I'll move it here so you can see what would happen. Again, it's going to focus mainly on the car. So you can see right there when you adjust it what happens. Obviously that was over exaggerated a bit, but I'm going to leave it at 0. I'm not a huge fan of playing with the saturation just yet. I like to kind of go through all this and then I'll go back and make any corrections. I do like a quick over edit and then I'll go back and play with the colors and all the saturation and stuff like that to whatever fits my eye the best. Let's come down to this S curve a bit, or the tone curve, and we're going to do like a little bit of an S going. I want to bring these shadows, or bring down the shadows a bit over here, so your eye focuses more on the car. So if we see here, I can do this and I'll kind of bring out that car a little bit more. You're going to want it to pop. So the other thing too, I'm going to bump these up. Again, I'm not a huge fan of the highlights, but I'm going to bump them up a little bit to bring back some of that whites down here. And then I'm going to put another point and kind of just lower this top point a little bit. You can see kind of what it's doing. I'm going to bring down the right there. Let's see how that looks. That looks about right. For automotive photography, I'll put another point somewhere down here. For automotive photography, you don't really need to do anything like this where you can make it kind of that faded look. Not something I would typically do. I might bump it a little bit just to give not such a harsh look, but typically I don't do anything in the lower end. Yeah, this is driving me nuts. All right, I gotta get rid of that. All right, so next we're gonna come down to the saturation, luminance, and hue. I'm not gonna touch this just yet. I'm gonna scroll down past this for a second, and I'm gonna work on the sharpening. Now again, I typically won't sharpen portraits or people. It just doesn't look natural to me. When it comes to automotive, architecture, you can kind of play with the sharpening a little bit more. So I'll bump this up to probably like 50 actually in this one. I don't really want to go too high. 55 looks fine. I'll pull the details up a little bit too. Again, it's all by feel, so you don't want to go crazy. Bring the radius up a bit. So if we go in here, you can kind of just see these corners and stuff. You just brought it out a little bit. So play. Some people don't like to sharpen photos. I don't mind it, so I typically will do a little bit more than most. The other thing I'll do is this noise reduction. Now, in this photo, it's not super prevalent. If you see up here, you can kind of see some noise. If you look closely at the car, like right around here, you can see some noise. It's not super noticeable in this photo. So what I'll do is I'll bring this up just a hair. Again, I want to kind of keep this sharpening, so I don't want to, do too much. But I'll bring up just a hair, so it kind of brings the harshness down a bit, like especially right in here. You can still see it. It's not too bad. Maybe I'll go up a little bit more than that. I don't want to lose my detail, though. That's what I'm being careful of right now. I want to make sure I'm keeping that detail. So that's about right. I'll do something about that. I don't mess with these colors just yet either. So we can scroll down. You got, where's that? You can do post-crop vignetting. Some people like it, some people don't. I don't mind vignetting. I'll do a hair of it, like a little bit. Obviously, you can do crazy amounts. I'm not a huge fan of that. A lot of times, too, I might just use like an app. Like if I'm going to do it in Instagram, for example, they have the ability to do a little bit of a vignette. And sometimes I'll wait until I get to Instagram to add it. It's just hit or miss. It depends on the photo. I mean, obviously for this automotive, I'll add like just a hair and it'll kind of draw your eye more into the vehicle and less up here and up here into the corners where you don't really want the person's eye to be. It kind of just draws it to the car. So a little bit won't hurt, but I wouldn't go too crazy. Obviously, again, I don't want to add grain. I want to keep that sharpness. Dehaze, I'm not going to use any. And I typically don't come down to the camera calibration. I'm using a 70D. It does a pretty good job already. Every once in a while, like if I'm trying to do like a different feel, I'll come in here and I'll play around with these, but typically I don't need to. So we'll close this for right now and we're going to go back and play with the colors a bit. So again, I don't want to over exaggerate, under exaggerate too much because it kind of takes away from the car and the trueness of this car. So I'm going to keep this pretty standard here. Let's see, I'm going to wait on hue and saturation. Let's come to the luminance though real quick. And obviously it's a blue car. So we got the blue we're going to bring out a little bit. And we obviously got these gold rims. That's like standard of Subaru. The blue and gold going on. So we're going to bring both of those out here. Just a little bit to pop. But we don't want to go overboard here. So we're going to start off with the luminance here. If we grab this blue, you can kind of see what it's doing. It's making that blue color darker or lighter. In this case, I'm just going to bring it up just a hair. Obviously, we darkened it when we were playing with the exposure and everything, so I want to kind of bring that back. The other thing, too, I want to bring these wheels up just a hair. So if we grab the yellow and orange, we're going to actually bring this yellow down a little bit, and we're going to bring the orange down a hair just as well. And that kind of brings back the gold because I feel like it's kind of lost back here. So by bringing those two down, it kind of brings that gold rim back. So we can grab like the green and stuff. You don't see a whole lot changing. You can see the windows changing a bit up there in the corner when we slide. But besides that, not a whole lot. And personally, I'm going to leave it at 0 because I just like the way it is with this little bit of a green tint going on. I don't want to affect... like I said, I don't like changing the photos too drastically. I can go into Photoshop and do that later if I really wanted, but not too much. Now you can see the purple here. It's kind of controlling the walls and this little gray area down here. You can bring it up and down a little bit. It's also affecting the blue of the color, so I'll bring it up just a hair to add a little bit of color to that car. I'll bring it up like 2 or 3. Not a whole lot. If you click on these numbers too, you can increment them with the arrow key up or down. So you don't have to do these dramatic like shifts. If you try to use the cursor, you can be more precise. You can also type the numbers in. So if we go here, we can kind of see it changing a bit. I don't want that purple hue so much or luminance, so I'm going to bring it up just like +3. Again, I'm not one to go crazy in one direction or another. I know some people will like pump all their colors like crazy amounts and stuff, and it takes away from the car in my opinion, but that's me. If you wanted to go in and try that, go for it. Again, it's all for your opinion. Now if we play with this red here, you can see it's affecting this line and the STI logo as well as the taillight. So I don't know what I want to do here. I'm going to bring it down just a hair, make these lights, make this a little bit darker. It makes it stand out a bit and bring that light. So that's about where I'd keep it right now for. We can also look at the magenta. Again, I don't want to touch this because it's making the walls purple. So I'm going to leave that at 0. So now I'm going to come into the saturation here and we're going to play with this a bit. I'm going to bring this up just a hair. That's the blue. If we look at it, you can really see as I move around what it's doing. But I'm going to bring it up just a hair. It kind of fades these reflections out when you do that. Something I like because I really wish I should have brought along a polarizer filter for my lenses. That would have helped to reduce all of these lens flare, like lens lens flares and things like that. I didn't. This was just like a quick, like, hey, I got tickets to go. Let's run down there real quick. I didn't bring my full gear. So let's play with this a little bit. It's not doing a whole lot. It's just changing the color barely. So I'm going to leave the aqua color alone. Again, if we play with the magenta, it's going to lighten the car. I don't want to go crazy on that. It's really starting to like change that blue. What I'd like to keep kind of just left alone here. So I'm going to bring the purple down. Again, I'm just going to leave all this at 0. Saturation, I'm going to pump up the blue hue just a hair. Let's see, that looks about where I would be. I'm not happy with that. That's why I say I'm not a huge fan of hue and saturation, because you can really start to mess with the image. I'm going to bring that yellow down a bit because I started to lose those gold and the rims, and I really wanted to bring those out. I'm also going to bring the orange colored hue down a bit, and we're going to turn, how do I want to do this? We're going to leave the red at 0. I don't really want to change that too much. The blue hue, we can put up like a couple here. Again, something like that is probably where I would keep it. Not making any drastic changes. Really, the aqua's only changing the front a bit. So we'll leave that at 0. So we'll do something like this. I'm going to lower the temp a little bit too, to take away that magenta and bring out more of that darker gray color. I don't want to go too much here, but something like that might be okay. Typically when I do car photography, I lean more towards like the darker colors, like the nighttime dark. So for me, I'll lower the temp quite a bit to make it like a colder feeling photo. So this is where I'd be at about right now. If we, whoops, clicked on the wrong thing here. Let's go back to my photo. There we go. If we click on this, we can see the before and after. So you can see I kind of brought down these, brought down the highlights right here, kind of brought out the curves of the car. You can see like the curve right there. Also you can see like this was kind of overexposed right there, kind of brought the color back. Kind of brought the color right here. You can see the light reflecting on it. So kind of just darkened up, made it look cool, brought out the lettering. You can really see those STIs. Now this red is kind of too much right now. I'm looking at it. It's just crazy. So I'm going to come back down here and bring this back up just a hair. Down in the luminance, we're going to lighten it up. It just doesn't look correct. Yeah, to me it just looks kind of crazy. So we're actually gonna, how do I want to do this? We're gonna lighten it actually. So we're gonna bring up the luminance and kind of just bring down that red. See, it's still too much. Let's come here real quick. Let's put that at 0. Kind of bring down the saturation of the red. Do something like this real quick. I don't want to lose it, but if you looked at the before and after here, if we go here real quick, you could really see the difference from the before and the after. Let's put it here. So this is kind of what I want, kind of match the same color. Yeah, so that looks about right. So if we go back, I think I'd call this done. Now, something I would do that I'm not going to do in this video is I'd come in here with the, not the brush, the clone tool, and I'd come in here a little bit, and if I'm magnifying in a little, or zoom in a bit, I would start to take out some of these flares. As you can see, you could like do something like this where you get the cursor over it, and whoops, what's going on? I'm lagging a bit here trying to film at the same time. So, whoopsie. There we go. So I'd zoom back in here. And I would probably, if this was going to be it, I'd come down here and try to grab something close by. As you can see, it's kind of affecting that blue. So I probably wouldn't do that exactly that way. But I'll delete that for right now. And yeah, there it is. So yeah, if I wanted to spend some more time on this, I would come back and do that. But I'm pretty happy with the way this is actually turning out. Let's zoom out a bit. I keep zooming in and out too quickly. I apologize. So we'll click on that. Kind of just zoom in there. So yeah, that's about it, guys. That's how I would edit this photo. Comment down below letting me know what you think of these videos. I'll try to bring some more tutorials on how to do some like little quick edits, maybe some Photoshop work. I do quite a bit. Maybe I'll do more in depth too, and like how to get rid of the lights and stuff with the clone tool, using brushes and stuff. But I just wanted to give you like a quick overview of how I would go about editing a photo. And again, this is just a real quick edit. There's just by far nothing I would give a client. This is more just like I want to throw it up on Instagram real quick, see what people think. And then later on, if I want to go back in and really clean it up, that's when I'll start doing all the Photoshop work and stuff. But typically, I'm not going to spend that amount of time on an Instagram post. It's just not worth it for me. Maybe it is for you guys. Leave me a comment if you want to see, how to get rid of like glare and stuff in the car body. I can show you all that. It's pretty simple. So yeah, guys, there we have it. First look at Lightroom tutorial. Let me know what you think.